This time, Graeme Souness reignites Rangers.
Because I'll stay a wild rover forever and more.
Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt the impossible to rank once and for all who is the greatest team of all time. My name's Graeme Dunn, making the case for Oxford United at every opportunity, and joining me as ever, king of the data, it's Jamie Rooney.
Graeme, hello. And you know, Back to the Future, when Marty McFly travels back to 1985, it's pretty much the sweet spot of where we're going right now, where the story begins. And if you go back to the 26th of October, 1985, which is the day that the Doc and Marty go back to, he could have gone to watch Rangers play in St Mirren, where Rangers would have lost by 3-1, and a young Ali McCoist is scoring the one for Rangers. So I think we are absolutely back in the sweet spot of the 1980s, 1985, where the football sun isn't shining on TV.
No, there's very little TV, both north and south of the border. Very little football on TV at this point. And this is a fantastic story. Scottish football during this period is absolutely fascinating from the start of the 80s all the way through. As it's only kind of almost punching above its weight with the likes of Aberdeen and Dundee United. And we've talked about both those teams. But throughout this period, Rangers have been bizarrely quiet, and it takes the arrival of just a powerhouse in terms of Graeme Souness, who absolutely changes all of that. Joining us this week to talk about this great side, and it's a welcome back. Welcome back to Stuart Murray. Hi, Stu.
Hi, Graeme.
I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming Murray doesn't suggest a great Scottish heritage there, does it?
I think so. Yeah, my name's actually Stuart Andrew Murray, so I was nearly called Andy Murray. So there is Scottish, from my dad's side. Yeah.
This is a great one, and I guess so. Stu, you were on previously talking about your beloved Aston Villa, and there is, we'll come on to it properly later, but there is a bit of an Aston Villa connection to this Rangers side, isn't there?
There is, as in Mark Walters, who was my first ever game at Villa Park. He managed to score a hat trick, and then about a month later, Rangers brought him offered.
Gutted.
Yeah, so I actually hate Rangers. There is actually another link to Rangers and Villa.
Oh, yeah.
So in the 70s, they played a friendly, and it's the first time that a game at Villa Park was called off because of crowd trouble. Yeah, the Rangers fans took the whole 10.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. I still remember my sister buying me a Rangers shirt because of Mark Walters signing for.
Fantastic.
Brilliant.
So this Rangers side, I guess maybe we should probably begin with talking a bit about what's been happening in Scottish football before then. It's been a fallow period for Rangers, hasn't it?
So the season before Souness comes in, Souness comes in 86, 87, yeah? So the 85, 86 season, they finished 5th. So above them, Aberdeen, Dundee, Celtic, and Hearts as well, all finished above them. So all of these are really decent teams. Now, at the start of the season, would have been fancying, I know it sounds crazy, well, the Hearts top of the league now.
Yes, they are. Yeah, Hearts are having another of their... In fact, me and Jamie were talking about this earlier. Hearts, who I assume will throw it away in some way, which they seem to be the story of Hearts. But every 5-10 years, Hearts suddenly come back with this side that takes the Scottish Premier League by storm, and it had the year before, hadn't it?
Being in Edinburgh, you'd think that they would be a big team anyway. They would be competing it. But yeah, they've got all these 4 teams above Rangers. I think Rangers just got into Europe. Aberdeen were a big team. When Rangers were playing Aberdeen, that was considered their huge game at the time because Aberdeen was so good.
Aberdeen, managed by Alex Ferguson back then, were absolutely ripping up the Scottish old firm, creating a new firm with Dundee United. But you're right, Graeme, Hearts, they went into the 85-86 season, which is the season before Souness comes in. And they were on a 27 game unbeaten run, All they had to do was draw the final game and hope that Celtic didn't overcome a +4 goal difference. And Celtic won 5-0 and Hearts lost 2-0 and the championship went to Celtic. It was incredible. But to answer your first question, as she's kind of alluded to, Rangers, Rangers have lost their identity with Celtic as their rivals and they've kind of been battling out with Aberdeen. And Rangers hadn't won a league title for up until 1986 for 9 years, which in the realms of Scottish football is a lifetime.
Yeah, it's a long old period, a proper sort of fallow period for Rangers. And you're right. And I suppose there are some things that are happening which maybe help them. Dundee United, as we've talked about, they're still a force, but a lot of the success that they'd had under Jim McLean was built around the same 4 or 5 players. You played pretty much every game, but they played like 500 games by now. They were kind of, that side was growing slightly old. And Aberdeen, obviously, this is the season, 86-87 is the season that Ferguson leaves, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think it's during the season that Big Ron gets a boot. So Souness and Fergie are actually... They do play a couple of... Do they play a couple of games against each other? I think there's one where there's an interview with them both in the... They've got them on the pitch, but it's kind of a mellow Fergie because he's already looking elsewhere. But what Souness says about this was the season before, the English clubs had been banned from Europe, but none of the Scottish teams had taken advantage of that, as in they weren't getting the English players. And he's come in and gone, right, let's get all the best English players over here because we can offer them European football and pay the big wages, yeah? So redevelop this ground because of the fire.
Is this the one in the 1970s?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why they've completely redeveloped the ground. But they've got this ground it's better than any ground in Britain.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Well, a long way. But it's hardcore, isn't it? So as soon as Souness comes in, the fans start coming back.
And actually, to some extent, this Rangers side is one of the... I suppose you've seen other clubs do this, but there are sort of some echoes to what happens at Blackburn Rovers, and we've seen with other sides where this side has a chairman or an owner that kind of bankrolls an investment. They see an opportunity, they see a chance, and as you say, I mean, just even bringing Souness in he was playing in Sampdoria. He's a massive player at the time, bringing him in as player manager. Even that is a huge statement of intent.
David Holmes, I think, was our man that did that. Is that right, Stu?
Yeah, that's right. And he was, by all accounts, a great guy. But they did actually whack the price. They doubled the season ticket prices after a season, and they started bringing in a lot of money. Whatever they were bringing in, they were spending on players.
Yeah, I think David Holmes really came with the intention. He took over as being chairman, I think, in the early 80s, 83, 84. And I think he decided that he was just going to take a chance. He was going to roll the dice and restore Rangers back to what they were. So he's the guy that takes the massive gamble with Souness, because you're right, Graeme. He's a 33-year-old. When he comes to his first press conference as Rangers manager, he's still got the Italian suntan going on. He's got the wonderful 1980s perm, and he's got the incredible upper beard lip going on with that beautiful moustache. But yeah, 33-year-old, never managed before, never played in Scotland before as well. And here he is taking over one of the biggest teams in Scottish football. I can only imagine the enthusiasm Souness is bringing, because you've already alluded to it. He's the first manager of note that actually makes use of the fact that English teams cannot offer players in England European football anymore because of the English ban following Heysel. So Souness just absolutely capitalizes on that. I mean, in his very first season, he brings in Butcher and Woods, 2 massive statement signings.
We'll come back onto those in a minute. There was just one thing I thought was interesting, which is Souness coming in as a player manager, which you see kind of less and less these days. Hardly surprising. Managers don't even sign players now, let alone play as well as pick the side. Well, in some cases, they don't pick the side either. But if something might have encouraged Rangers to take that gamble, it was what was happening at Liverpool in the immediate season before, where Kenny Dalglish had sort of gone from who Souness had obviously played with all that time and had that same sort of, I don't know, Anfield mentality. Maybe they're hoping to get some of the back off, but where Liverpool rolled the dice on Dalglish with some sort of proper support, and that had gone unbelievably well.
Yeah, well, Souness wouldn't have happened without Dalglish. Who else was doing that? Did Johnny Giles do?
Johnny Giles. There've been bits and pieces, and I think when it has happened, it's been players whose careers are. I mean, Howard Kendall, I think, when he takes over Everton, I think Howard Kendall might be player manager. But their career is essentially kind of over, whereas Graeme Souness would still have been he could have played pretty much for anyone at that stage, still in the midfield, I would think.
He was by far and away the fittest player at the club when he came there.
Yeah.
So, and he still had another year left on his contract at Sampdoria.
To your point, and in fact, actually, Souness is playing, he's presumably playing in the World Cup in Mexico in the summer of '86 before. So he's in Sampdoria, gets the Rangers job, goes back to Sampdoria to finish, heads off to Scotland to play in the World Cup.
Managed by Alex Ferguson as well, who has had to take over the reins of the Scotland team because of the shocking and unsurprisingly death of Jock Steed. He was manager of Scotland at that moment after Scotland had qualified by securing it against Wales. So it's just an incredible mix. He's playing under a coach, a manager that he's going to go head to head with.
Of course, Alex Ferguson's assistant is Walter Smith, who is Graeme Souness' assistant and who manages Rangers in the last two games whilst Souness is playing in Sampdoria. So he's working for Souness and then in Mexico, where he's kind of presumably ordering Souness around. But as you say, the point you both made is it's not just Souness arriving. It is taking advantage of the opportunity to sign English players. And Stu, that's a really good point you make about that. Actually, nobody else had done it. They could have done it, but when Rangers do it, these two signings are real statement signings, aren't they? I mean, Chris Woods he's probably England number 2 at that stage. I mean, part of England squads throughout the time, and Terry Butcher, was he? He wasn't quite England captain at that stage.
Yeah, he was. I think he was.
Yeah,
these are huge signings, aren't they?
Robson got injured in the World Cup, and I think Butcher took over. Yeah.
Yes.
Butcher was a huge signing. Spurs wanted him, but he was hanging on. If Man United had come in for him, he would have gone to Man United. That's what he said. But he's Souness got him over. I think he might have been. So the story is, he was hungover after playing in a rest of the world. There was some game. I don't think it was in England. It was something to do with Maradona was playing, and Butcher scored. But anyway, he was after the game. Butcher's hungover, and he's arranged to meet Souness. And Souness got hold of him. Butcher thinks they're just going to have a chat. But Souness is like, no, come with me. We're getting on a plane. We're going up to Ibrox. Wants to show him the crown, basically, to try and convince him, this is the place to be. And I think because Butcher's missus was into it, he signed. But getting Butcher was huge. Yeah, I think.
Butcher is still in his prime. Then in my mind he was older, but he's only 28, I think, when he joins.
Yeah, he's prime time. Yeah, and he's not a. People who haven't seen him play have a reputation of him. He was the headband on, didn't they, in the blood pouring?
Yeah, that's true.
He was a brilliant player, wasn't he? He was. I think they were saying that they had a nickname for him at Rangers where it was to do with a piston because of how accurate his passing was.
He had such a presence on the football pitch. He had that incredible authority at the back on the pitch, but also a danger at set pieces in the opposing box as well. I mean, he scores a number of important headed goals for Rangers in his time. But he was a bit of a warrior.
And Chris Woods at the back in goal. And I guess this is still at a time, 1986, where Scottish goalkeepers are probably not renowned, are they? Where are we? Have they begun to be restored by 1986? Certainly in 1982, Scottish keepers and Alan Ruff didn't have a great reputation. Bringing in Chris Woods, bringing in Terry Butcher, you've got, that is and you add in Graeme Souness, and straight away, you've got a spine to that team that is incredible.
They got Colin. Is it Colin West?
Colin West, yeah.
Yeah, Colin West from Watford.
Yeah, but he got injured, so he didn't really play so much.
Yeah, Colin West would be a big target man, a proper sort of number 9. So I guess that continues that spine. What's easy to underestimate is that the Rangers also had some really decent players at that stage, didn't they?
So if you take West gets injured, but then they've got Klepp and obviously Ali McCoy, playing up front. And when I've been watching back some of the highlights, Robert Klepp is absolutely superb player.
Yeah.
I know that he's been voted Chelsea's worst ever signing. I know that, but he looks really good here when he's playing. I think it's something to do with why he left. Was there was some sort of brawl out, like a late night brawl. He's involved in it. Durant's involved in it, and I think he just had enough of. This is just from what I've been reading up. He's just had enough of the politics or whatever. So he wants to get out.
But in Ali McCoy's, they have got a genuine superstar, just an incredible goal scorer. The volume of goals McCoy is scoring in his early years at Rangers is just incredible. I mean, he's regularly getting into the 40s in some season, which is a huge amount. And McCoy's at this point when Souness signs, I think he's only around about 23, 22, 23, still really, really young. So you're right, they bring in Colin West and it doesn't work out for injury, but I've got some pretty good backups as you guys mentioned.
So you know who their main young player is? Ian Durant.
Yeah, Ian Durant, yeah.
The winger, Davy Cooper.
Davy Cooper, yeah.
Yeah, so they brought in these 4 players, only 3 of them playing really, but with all these great players around them, they're ready to go, aren't they? They haven't completely done a complete refurb. They've just brought in, they've got Souness, Woods, and Butcher as the spine, and then the rest of the players around them.
They also bring in Graham Roberts that season as well.
Yeah, Roberts joins a little bit later, but Roberts does, and I think Roberts is a bit of arguably is a turning point player, slightly surprisingly, really, because Graeme Roberts seemed fine at Tottenham, but it wasn't obvious he was the difference maker. But does go on to be maybe is the one signing that makes a difference. Now, so there's a lot of excitement coming into this first game. You can imagine the excitement. Rangers, I assume they're away at Burnian, but knowing Souness, Souness would like to kind of announce himself to the game, and he definitely does announce himself, doesn't he?
I can't believe it. It's like it's too stereotypical, But then he did. But then what I found out was he's never been sent off before. That was his first sending off.
Wow. No, really?
Souness said that after he got sent off, as he's walking up, he looked up and made eye contact with his dad. His dad looked so disappointed. But I think even in that game, the goal's not Butcher's and Woods' fault. The 2 goals that they concede are down to Butcher and Woods. 2 big. So basically, the 3 players that have come in, everyone's really excited for let's do these internationals, and they've costed the game.
And it's impressive picking up 2 bookings within 36 minutes. There's a full-on brawl. Chris Woods, fair play to him, he appears from nowhere to get right into the heart of it.
He does, yeah.
And I did see Souness being interviewed afterwards or a bit later talking about it, and he took some kind of encouragement that the whole team coming in and got stuck in, because it at least showed there was some team spirit there.
Well, the thing is with Rangers is that they... because they started getting all these English players in, when they were playing, all the opposition fans started singing Flower of Scotland. So it almost became, obviously you've got the religious side to it and the partisan side to it, with Rangers being the Protestant club, was obviously on steroids, when at one point I think they had 6 English players playing.
Oh, yeah. So for debuts, I think given everything attached to it, all the hype, all the interest, all the how's Graeme Souness going to cope with this, all the interest around it, it has to be the best of it. It has to be even beat my favourite sending off, which was Jerry Gow for Rotherham. There seems to be some confusion as to whether it's just his home debut or his actual debut for Rotherham. It's suggested it's his actual debut. When I've read a match report from it, and it said it's his second game and it's his first one at home, but it's not clear whether it's the first in the league. But Jerry Gow, who is quite an experienced pro at this stage, he played many years for Bristol City and Man City. I think he was a bit of an enforcer in there. First minute, 1 yellow card. Second minute, second yellow card. Off you go. 2 minutes. Wow. 2 minutes sending off on your debut. Now that is special, isn't it? It isn't a laughing matter because he did break someone's leg. So, it's not, there's not a happy, I don't want to, it's not all great for Jerry, but the spirit of, managing to pick up 2 yellow cards in 2 minutes is quite something, isn't it? And what's interesting, obviously Souness gets sent off. Rangers lose that first game. I think they lose their third game. It's not sort of a magical start. It's not Souness doesn't come in, these players come in and it's obvious that Rangers are going to win everything. It's quite a slow start they make.
Yeah, Graeme, you're right, it is a slow start, but I think, Stu's already alluded to it. You've got a bunch of new players coming in, but more importantly, you've got a new mentality. I think that Souness is bringing as well with the team, and we've probably seen that in the opening game at Hibernian at Easter Road, where it's Souness is responsible for full-on scrap on the pitch. So there are some changes, and you've also got, we talked about it briefly in terms of like the convoluted relationship, you've also got Walter Smith, who is in the background. So Walter Smith's come in from Dundee United. He was an assistant at Dundee United. He's coming to assist Souness after his stint at the World Cup with Ferguson and Scotland. And so there's a new coaching team, there's a new dynamic, there's new players. So the start is slow, but once they get to find their groove, they certainly go on a run and showcase that they are a new Rangers.
Walter Smith, and we'll come on to him because obviously he comes on. He's sort of the second half of this story. We won't really cover it properly on this one, but obviously he takes on things. But he's really interesting. I was just looking at a bit of Walter Smith's background. Now, Jamie, you'll like this. Walter Smith plays 3 games for one of our favourite teams. In 1967, he plays for the Dallas Tornadoes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
That season in the North American Soccer League, where basically they didn't have any players, so
they just shipped players from
they shipped whole teams. Dundee United essentially were the Dallas Tornadoes.
Yes.
And then I was reading, and I have no idea how you can confirm this, but this is apparently a thing. So he's played most of his time at Dundee United, and then he gets injured. I think when he's 28, 29, and he really then, quite early on in his playing career, he's still playing, but he's really essentially just working with the reserves and the coaching at this stage, and so he actually plays more games, and it is a club record, I think, of something like 360 games in the reserves for Dundee United reserves. Wow. It's just fantastic.
God, he really is the number 2 his whole life.
But I think it's weird. There's you can see the value of the number 2 in the assistant manager at this time. And as you'd seen with Liverpool, who'd had they kept that boot room philosophy with Kenny Dalglish and Ronnie Moran and Roy Evans so heavily involved. And I think because Souness is playing, he plays half the games. In fact, he plays half of the games that he's playing. In fact, I do remember there was a joke at the time, which was Graeme Souness walks into a pub. The barman says, "Fancy a pint, Graeme?" And he said, "No, just one half and I'm off."
I've heard that, but like the other way around.
Yeah, I think there's probably you can pull any player in there, can't you? But because Souness is on the pitch for a lot of the time, or in the dressing room, licking his wounds, whatever. Walter Smith's quite, is a really significant part of this story.
Walter Smith is obviously, when we get to 92, when he takes over, you kind of like look at when you're looking into Rangers fans and who they consider to be their all-time heroes. It's Richard Gough and Walter Smith would be the 2 heroes, wouldn't they? Yeah. So when he come in, he couldn't believe how bad Rangers was being run. as in he was saying that they would come after the game, after training, they'd come in and just hang their clothes up, and then the next day they'd come in and they'd just be all kind of stiff, and there's, it's like shaking them out and putting them back on again. And he's going,
Yeah.
this isn't what I was expecting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it does start with mentality there, because that's what Souness is doing. Souness doesn't even realise this probably at the time in 1986-87, this very first season that he's taken over. But he's laying down this blueprint, which is going to be an absolute dominating period for Rangers. And he's doing this by bringing in strong central defenders, similar to Richard Gough, from English football as well. Butcher's come from English football, Gough comes from English football. And then handing the reins over to Walter Smith. And obviously, when we talk through the legacy towards the end of this, when we get to the ranking, it's worth talking about what that actually means and that continuity. But yeah, Souness that is part of what Souness is doing here. He's coming in with the support of David Holmes at the time, he was the chairman, and getting an absolute mandate to rip up the book as it was and just completely change Scottish football and put Rangers right at the top of the tree again. And he does it almost immediately.
Mm.
Yeah, he changes the rate structure as well, because he's kind of when he's come in, I think Ali McCoyston is on pretty much the same as the reserve players. They kind of had a ceiling on what they were paying, and that ain't going to work.
I think that's brilliant though, because he's come in as player manager and he's decided as manager to change the wage structure of the players.
Richard Gough, who joins the fight at the end of that season, and you're absolutely right. It does sort of show the appeal and the spending power of Rangers at this point. So he'd left Dundee United in 86, in the summer that Souness arrives. It follows that traditional path that a lot of Scottish players have been doing at the time, heading south, joining a big club. He obviously didn't get that bit right because he joined Spurs. This is a decent Spurs.
David Cleats Spurs. Yeah. Treble chasers.
But that Rangers can tempt Gough back, and they pay, I think Gough becomes the first £1 million Scottish player signed by a Scottish club or something like that. And the first season, without going too far into what's to come, the first season Rangers don't win anything, and then he wins. Then he wins 9 titles in a row whilst he's there. So he has quite a good time.
When Souness brought him, he brought him to play him at right back because he had Roberts and Butcher.
Of course, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
And then what happened was Butcher got injured, and Roberts, Richard Gough had to play together, and they were terrible together. And apparently they didn't get on. At Spurs together.
Yeah, that's right. They would have been.
So they didn't get on personally, and they couldn't get on playing together neither. You almost needed that Butcher type figure in there to be the leader. Souness wanted to get him straight away, but Dundee United wouldn't sell him to Rangers, so he had to go to.
Okay, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
You could see that. The other thing that's I find pretty interesting in this is the way which Rangers and David Holmes and Souness have stolen a march on all the other Scottish clubs at this time. They clearly aren't ready for someone to do what Rangers go and do in terms of money and wages. And it's interesting, Celtic are champions in 85-86. Now Rangers they have a net spend across in that 86-87 season of around 2 million, in signing Woods and Butcher and Colin West and Graham Roberts. Celtic signed 3 players. All of them are free transfers. So Anton Rogan, McKnight, the keeper. There's someone else, I think they're all a couple from the Irish League, one from Scotland. They spend no money whatsoever. In fact, they sell a couple, so they're kind of net minus 50,000. And this sort of shows you the kind of, I suspect Celtic were perhaps a little bit complacent at that stage, or maybe not able to react in the same way. But Rangers definitely steal a march on them. And it feels like, becomes apparent, is late October, the final of the League Cup, the Scottish League Cup, which they hold quite early on in Scotland, which is in October. gloriously, Celtic play Rangers there. And gloriously, the sponsor of that is Skull. Skull. Who is Skull, Jamie?
Skull Lager. I mean, Stu, you remember Skull Lager, I hope. This is back in the era where we should remember, and we could talk about shirt sponsors as well, which was quite interesting as well. So we can come on to that in a bit. But this is when sponsorship in football is fairly a new thing in the 1980s. So it's just slowly being adopted. And a lot of breweries jumping on the bandwagon because they realized that if you are behind something, your name is all over something, and therefore the chances are that people are going to buy your beer as preference. So Skull Lager go on a massive ad campaign as well. And Graeme, I don't know if you remember in the 1980s, and this might be a little bit before your time, they had Hager the Horrible, who I think used to feature on the back of the Sun in a cartoon. They had Hager the Horrible advertising their lager. So Skull Lager are sponsoring the Scottish League Cup. And there's a brilliant advert. Not only is it brilliant advertising to really drive the whole idea that you want to drink Skull Lager, it's just really funny. So if you could picture the scene, you've got Hager the Horrible with his friend Eddie sat at the bar, and behind him, and it's all pencil drawn. The whole crew in the Skull Tavern are chanting Skull, 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 Skull. Right up front and centre is Hager the Horrible with his Skull beer, his golden Skull beer, and he's singing along Skull, 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 Skull. And he turns to his mate Eddie and he's like, Eddie, why are you not joining in our drinking games? And Eddie turns around to Hager the Horrible and says, I just forgotten the words. And it's just a beautiful bit of advertising because the whole skull, 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 skull is in your head. And equally, you've got this humour from Hager the Horrible, who was a big deal in the 1980s, I think, as a kind of a very simple cartoon. But yeah, Skull Lager are the sponsors of the Scottish League Cup. And in an era where sponsorship is a very, very new thing. So up there in Scotland, you've got beer, and down in England, you've got milk.
So Rangers play Celtic in the League Cup final, the Skull Cup final. And this is sort of a turning point moment, I guess, when Souness isn't playing. I don't think he's suspended for this one. He's managing, but you have got Butcher, Woods and company. And again, this is a pretty extraordinary game to watch. Ian Durrant gives Rangers the lead, and Brian McClare equalises for Celtic, and then the last few minutes he goes a bit mad.
Where Butcher gets a penalty.
Yeah.
Butcher, yeah.
Aitken pulls him down.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
And it looks a penalty. It looks a penalty to me. I'm not sure Aitken agrees. But then this kicks off. Mo Johnston, who is playing for Celtic at this point, he will re-enter the story. He gets sent off, and someone else gets sent off.
Tony Shepherd gets sent off for Celtic. So the referee, Bob Valentine, also sends off Tony Shepherd, for his assistant. And I can call him a linesman because it's the 1980s to say, because the referee, Bob Valentine, has adjudged Shepherd to have hit him on the head with something. So he's turned around after he's been struck on the head and he's just issued the red card. He's basically just blamed the closest guy next to him. And then his linesman tells the referee that, I think that's a coin that was just thrown from the crowd that hit you on the head, referee. To which, in a very rare moment before VAR, the referee rescinds the red card. He actually holds his hands up and says, I've made an error. And this weird thing's going on where he's not taken the red card back, and Tony Shepherd is free to carry on in the last few moments of this crucial Skull Cup final. It's incredible, Graeme. I mean, I don't know, Graeme, Stuart, can you think of an occasion where a referee has changed their mind to that degree?
No. I think where Graham Cole didn't bother.
Simic, when he gave Simic three yellow cards, yeah. 2 is just not enough. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, now we get referees changing their mind all the time as soon as they go off to the little screen on the side of the football pitch. The moment they go over there, they're reversing their decision, regardless of whether they agree with it or not, because that's the protocol that's been set with VAR. But here's a referee doing it off his own back, and let's commend Bob Valentine for having the balls to change his mind.
But very much so. It is a first, definitely a first. Yeah, we end up in this situation. Rangers have won their first bit of silverware. The investment has worked, and then the season then sort of they pull everything together, don't they? I mean, I think at the turn of the year, Celtic are something like 9 points clear or whatever, but Rangers go on just a crazy run, don't they?
Well, I could tell you, I don't know the number of games, but I could tell you they lose to Aberdeen away on the 22nd of November, and then they only lose one game after that, and that's in April to Celtic for the rest of the season. So from late November through to May, they only lose one single league game, and that's against their rival Celtic.
They have they play 19 games. They win 16 in a row. They win 16 and 19, draw the other 3. Lose to Celtic, and then they only win the league by 6 points, and Celtic lose their last 2 games of the season. So it was still tight, but
it was also 2 points for a win still, incredibly. Here we are in the mid-80s where most leagues have adopted 3 points. Scotland was still awarding 2 points for a victory.
So the investment in Souness and the Rangers have made has paid dividend. Rangers win their first title for 9 seasons. They are back on top of Scottish football, and they go on to go from strength to strength, and we'll pick that up in the second half. Welcome back. We are talking about Graeme Souness's Rangers, who have had a fantastic triumph in their first season. Shirt sponsors at this stage. Who are Rangers sponsored by?
Yeah, so I mean, this ties in with the Skull Cup and sponsorship. So again, in the 1980s, shirt sponsors are something that's fairly new. And Graeme, I think we've covered podcasts before where teams have played on live on TV in the English league, and they have had to take the sponsorship off their shirt because of TV advertising. And in the 1980s, you couldn't advertise any other company or anything on your shirt other than the club badge and the manufacturer of your kit. But in the mid 1980s, things are taking off. And I don't know if you remember, Rangers was sponsored by the Glazer company, not the Glazers as in Manchester United, the Glazers as in Windows, C.R. Smith, who are based in Scotland. And at the same time, Celtic was sponsored by C.R. Smith. So you got the 2 heavyweights of Glasgow wearing the same shirt sponsor, which is quite a unique thing. And I think this comes down to the fact that and this was the first shirt sponsors for both Rangers and Celtic. So this is the very first time they're putting a company on their shirts to advertise via the shirt sponsorship scheme. That was a fresh and new thing in the 1980s. And I think it's down to the MD at the time of C.R. Smith, I think a guy called Gerard Eadie. He I mean, quite an astute business guy. If he sponsored just Rangers, he's potentially losing half of his customer base, because Celtic fans may think, well, I'm not getting my windows from C.R. Smith here. It sounds really bad, I realise.
It does make sense.
So he kind of like brokered this deal between Celtic and Rangers to have both. So therefore he's capitalising on both of these football teams, which is pretty clever and quite a unique thing. And it all makes sense. You're absolutely right, Graeme, because I would imagine there are Tottenham Hotspur fans that refuse to use Emirates Airlines. I don't know this for definite, but I'm almost certain of the case. And I'm sure when we did Chesterfield as well, the North Derbyshire Health Authority, I'm absolutely certain that Mansfield Town fans would have not gone to that health authority. They would have gone somewhere else in Derbyshire. So the C.R. Smith thing makes total sense. And it's just like one of those little quirks. Little quirks in football that is really interesting when you see the 2 giants of Scottish football having the same shirt sponsor.
That is pretty. I think Flybe, the former regional airline, I think they sponsored a cup, maybe Birmingham and Exeter at the same time, but they were opposite ends of the spectrum. But I can't think of that occurring at all otherwise. Yeah, that's a fantastic fact.
What about the Celtic when they're one of the last clubs to put numbers on the back of their shirt?
Oh
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
It does. It is. It's fascinating when you're watching the footage. You are wondering how they can tell apart.
They had the number on the front of their shorts and the back of their shorts, didn't they? So it wasn't on their shirts. They had the same number on the front and the back of their short shorts as well.
It was definitely an era, wasn't it?
Or short shorts.
Oh, God.
So Rangers have spent big in 1986 to make a difference, and they spend big again. There's no resting up in the following summer, and they spend, as we mentioned earlier, they bring Richard Gough in for $1 million, but it's actually a couple of the. And I think also they later on they sign Ian Ferguson from St Mirren, who goes on to be an integral part of the Rangers side over this period. But again, it's some of the English players that they sign are really eye catching. And I mean, you mentioned your sadness at the signing of it, but this is when Mark Walters joins.
So yeah, Mark Walters would have been, what was he, 500 grand, something like that.
500,000.
He was at Villa, in second division. He started getting into the Villa team straight from the European Cup. So he played in the Super Cup against Barcelona in 1982-83. And then he started getting game time then. And he's from Aston, yeah? So he's in and around, he's a Villa fan. But he went to Rangers and he was the first black player to play in the Scottish Premier League since, is it the 19th century?
It's Walter Tull.
Walter Tull. Well, and when was it, Graeme? What period was it?
It's just around the First World War.
Because I think he goes off and fights.
The First World War. So yeah, whilst he's a soldier, he is stationed in Scotland in 1917 and signs for Rangers, but it is not obvious that he ever actually plays for them, because I think there's some debate as to whether Mark Walters was the first black player to play for Rangers or not. But either way, it's kind of, we've seen Souness is breaking down barriers. Whatever he sees, whether it is a barrier, a ceiling, or a footballer, he smashes, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's well, when he's got Mark Walters, the first game that he plays is against Celtic, and the amount of, so this is where there's kind of like discrepancy with the way that the media treat Celtic. They, after the game, they kind of brush over the fact that all of the bananas being thrown onto the pitch and the amount of abuse that Walters is getting. And then a couple of weeks later, he plays at Hearts, and that's when they bring it up. That's when the media start to, highlight the fact that he's getting this amount of abuse. But he actually got it at Celtic on his debut. But they kind of brushed over it. I'm only getting one perspective of this.
Well, I mean, John Barnes suffered similar abuse as well, playing in England in his early days. And again, it was brushed over. So I can understand the kind of the crazy mentality that's attached to this. So because it's disgraceful behavior and this concentrate on what's more important, and that's a fantastic, exciting football player. I mean, you mentioned that, you've seen him score a hat-trick. You've probably left Villa Park thinking, this is brilliant. I'm going to love coming here, watching him play. And then a few weeks later, he's playing in Scotland.
Yeah. But we did have Tony Davies coming in.
You
too.
did, yeah.
But,
he was a wonderful player as well.
He's, when you watch him play, the step over, he had a particular double step over that would every time send the defender off, and he'd be away. When the players do the step overs, and they're almost like half-hearted, yeah? When you watch Walters do a step over, you went with you.
Speed.
Brilliant. Yeah, he was a brilliant player.
It's his speed at doing it. It's the pace and speed. And he is dropping shoulders at the same time as well. So he is selling you those dummies.
Yeah.
So is it Souness who signs him for Liverpool as well? Is it? Because he spends 4 or 5 years, and presumably it's Souness who signs him again at Liverpool, I imagine.
I think Souness takes him almost immediately.
Yes. So Souness goes for the last few games to Liverpool. I think Liverpool top of the league when he goes there.
He soon changed that.
Yeah. He got Walters that summer. But Walters said that's biggest regret was leaving Rangers. He makes a lot of people's greatest team.
He's not alone in terms of signings. We talked about Richard Goff and Ian Ferguson. There's also Mark Falco joins. Obviously, the success of Colin West as a big Watford target man is repeated with Mark Falco, who's briefly there for a season. But by this stage, Ray Wilkins is playing there. Trevor Francis, who now Francis would have played with Souness at Sampdoria, I would imagine. He joins from Atalanta. But Wilkins in particular has quite a successful spell at Rangers, doesn't he? The following season, in that 87-88 season, which Celtic actually, they've gone through a bit of a transition themselves, which includes the sale. They sell Mo Johnston, they sell Brian McClare that year, but they bring in Andy Walker, Frank McAvenny and Joe Miller, which kind of refreshes that side. And there's a pretty notorious game at Parkhead, I think it is, the 2-2 game in which well, there are definitely some repercussions from that one.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears, isn't it?
It's a funny game. I was watching it back and I kind of was expecting to see worse. You know, for background, after the event, I think McAvenny and Terry Butcher definitely is charged with a fray. You know, this, which I guess says everything about the stakes that are on that game. But it just looks like a properly charged up derby, doesn't it?
I think Graham Roberts does punching, doesn't it? Yeah. But how is Woods getting sent off for that? He's basically just being antagonised, and he's just civil one.
It absolutely is hilarious because McAvenny is you know charging things up a little bit, and it is worth, and we will come on to this. Souness had tried to sign McAvenny, when it became apparent that McAvenny was going to come back from West Ham where he'd been. Souness was in for him, but McAvenny says it's nothing to do with Protestant Catholic. It was just that he was a Celtic fan. He wanted to play for Celtic. That's the team he supported. And it's sort of quite clear he's pretty recently joined Celtic at that stage, and it's pretty clear that he's fired up for it. And he sort of goes in a bit on Chris Woods. There's nothing horrendous. And Woods, it's just a little bit of tiny sort of pushing and shoving, but nothing from Woods. And then Butcher comes in as a sort of peacemaker. And again, he doesn't really do very much. And then Graeme Roberts comes in with a sly right hook.
But if you see that, Frank McAvenny is definitely punching above his weight there, isn't he?
Yeah, Frank McAvenny with his kind of pretty boy looks, taking on Terry.
But that's what could happen in the derbies, right? Remember Dion Dublin headbutting Robbie Savage? You know, it just can get you like that. I remember Gareth Barry just completely losing it. And Gareth Barry is the most mild-mannered.
Very mild-mannered.
Gareth Barry, you just think about quite a chilled-out player. I think he is. And him just, you know, like these derbies they can just get you. I think that's what when the court case happened. That's what the reason they got charged was they were saying that it could have caused a riot.
I think in terms of rivalries go, I don't think there's many in the world that are more fierce than Celtic and Rangers, because it's more than just a football match. And when you take into account the history of Scottish football and how long the history of Scottish football is pretty much going back to the dawn of time when football began. I don't think there are many footballing rivalries that beat Rangers Celtic.
I mean, I'd suggest maybe there's one in Istanbul, and maybe throwing Graeme Souness into that one isn't the answer, but that's another conversation we'll come on to. I think you're right. The rivalry involved in this, and I think it would be sort of, you know, I mean, there's some quite headline grabbing tackles and scenes and aggro during this Souness regime. But there has been in Celtic Rangers games for years and ever since, from what I can tell. It's just a really highly charged derby.
How about the one where he gets sent off, where he takes the player out and the players not even wearing boots.
It is so funny. I think it's Billy Stark, Celtic player.
I think even Souness, when he does it, he realises he's gone too far. He's like, he kind of like, he takes him out and then he kind of leans over to apologise.
Geez, Billy Stark, I think it's Billy Stark, is holding his boot at the time. I don't really know why. Play's carrying on. Obviously his boots come off and he's got the game hasn't stopped, so he's holding his, boot at the time. And whether Souness knows or not, he decides this is the time to take him out take him out from behind.
Wow.
If Souness hadn't got many red cards until this period, he's certainly warming to his task by now, isn't he?
And always in big occasions as well.
Rangers actually had the Graham Roberts. There's fantastic. This game, Rangers score a last minute equaliser, and Graham Roberts is kind of conducting the crowd at the end. There's great scenes, but Celtic do have the last laugh. They win the title that season. I think Rangers win the Scottish Cup that year, or the Skull Cup again, don't they?
Skull Cup, the League Cup, yeah.
Oh, a little fact on Celtic win is Billy McNeil. So they win the double this year, and Billy McNeil's got the job after taking down the season before Man City and Villa in the same season.
Yeah, we covered this, didn't we, Stu?
Yeah. So he's done that and then got the job and won the double.
This is the thing with football management, and it goes on right now. You are rewarded for failure. You can fail and fail and fail in football as a manager and still get rewarded every single time. It's one of the most bizarre jobs in the history of jobs, I think. The only job where you can be terrible and still get rewarded.
Yeah, it's interesting how the same faces keep coming back.
So this season, Celtic have won the league. Rangers actually finished third, I think. They win the League Cup. And they also probably have a bit of a sideline because they're in the European Cup. And this is a period where the European Cup is really up for grabs. So English teams, which have been dominated, starting in the early 1980s with Nottingham Forest and Aston Villa. Liverpool go on and do some serious damage. Then English teams are out of it. And so between 86 and 91, before the AC Milan team really starts to dominate, this is a period. And Rangers, I think it's a missed opportunity, would you say?
Definitely for that second season. So at the start of the season, they fancied they could do something. They're in with a chance. And then I think they get Dynamo Kiev, which is basically the USSR team. And this is where
That's true.
Souness has watched them training at Ibrox the night before the game and realised that they're just using the width for the pitch. So he gets the groundsman to pull the pitch in as far as he can to make the picture look tighter for the game. That's
incredible.
Yeah, that's what he done. When the players have all turned up, the lines have been redone. Like right, they brought them right in. Because Ibrox is quite a wide pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the modern day equivalent of Sunderland bringing their advertising boards in, so Arsenal can't do their long throw-ins. It's win by any means possible, isn't it?
The Dynamo Kiev manager made them measure the pitch after the game.
Excellent.
To make sure that it met with UEFA's minimum dimensions. Wow.
Yeah, but they did hit Dynamo Kiev, who were who would have been one of the favourites to win it. So when they drawn them out, they thought, "Oh God." But yeah, they got through that. I don't know who did they lose to in the end.
They lost to Steaua Bucharest in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So, and just going back to that first game in Kiev, 100,000 fans. I mean, it's incredible. 100,000 fans. I mean, you just don't really get that these days at all. But obviously not all Steaua Stadium back then. But yeah, they get all the way to the quarterfinals where they go out to Steaua Bucharest, Graeme.
Yes. And is that the year Steaua get to the final?
No, they go out in the very next round themselves to Benfica, who then go to the final and lose to PSV Eindhoven. PSV Eindhoven winning their one and only European Cup. But this is really reinforcing my point. I think Rangers, this European Cup is up for grabs. You know, a PSV knockout Real Madrid in the semi-finals. Benfica's a big name, but if Rangers get through the Stoya game, then I think they had a chance.
And this absolutely also fits the bill that you quite often see a team once they've won the league, for the especially when there's a lot attached to it. Retaining the league is very difficult to do, get that focus of doing, but especially once you have European football, or the European Cup in this case, the distraction of that. And I suspect that was potentially what was almost the prime focus for Rangers at this point. And he's brought in players like Francis, like Wilkins, super familiar with playing European football. And I think they would have had themselves absolutely high hopes. And when you see what goes on to happen after the season in terms of the domestic game, it's clear that Rangers sort of had it within their the playing squad and the power and the financial power they had at the time to maybe do better in the league that season. But I do wonder whether they as well thought this was their opportunity in the European Cup and look back with some regret on that not going well.
I think they definitely would have thought they would have after when they beat Kiev, they would have. I reckon that they'd have been getting a bit of tunnel vision for the European Cup that year.
Yeah. So Rangers, as you say, they finished third. They're off the pace quite a lot there. But again, this is the story of the consistent story of Rangers over this period. They have the spending power. And it's worth saying, because Stuart, I think you mentioned this earlier, before Souness came in, before they started spending this money, Ibrox was half empty, wasn't it? But the gamble has paid off. They are getting big crowds now, aren't they?
Are they selling out every week, pretty much?
Yeah.
They gave the away fans the whole of behind of that goal, didn't they? Behind, as you're looking from the camera to the left, they gave that's quite a big allocation. So if they weren't selling out, it would have been because of the away fans not taking up their allocation.
The following season, the 88-89, when it's Celtic, Aberdeen, when it's one of the big clubs, they're selling out 42,000, but they're getting 33,000 for Hamilton Academicals coming. So, there is a lot of interest in this club.
Well, and what Souness has done with David Holmes, and in this 88-89 season, David Holmes' spell is going to come to an end as well, because there is a takeover bit going on in the background. But in that 5 or 6 year spell with David Holmes really turning and restoring Rangers and Souness supporting it on the pitch, they've gone from average crowds of around about 18,000 up to, as you guys are saying, I think 38,000, 40,000. So they've doubled the capacity. They've doubled the attendances just in this 5 year spell. And they're also taking advantage of, the new money that's going on in the 1980s. So there's a lot of commercial opportunities being brought into the club as well. The whole kind of, the classic kind of football box experience, which becomes a massive commercial beast for so many football teams. Rangers are embracing this right at the forefront in the 1980s. They're doing the whole kind of, dinner dining experience as you prepare to watch the football.
So the following season, the 88-89 season, which there's several sort of pivotal points about that, but they do spend big again. What is when you look at who they buy? So it's worth saying that they lose a couple of fullbacks. They lose Avi Cohen, who was briefly within the Israeli international, who'd been presumably with Souness at Liverpool back in the day. And they lose Jimmy Phillips, who goes to join Oxford United. So that would have been a big miss. But they signed during that summer. Well, that summer in July, they buy Gary Stevens from Everton, who I would assume is the England right back at that stage. Yeah. And in October, they buy Mel Sterling from Sheffield Wednesday, who I think is probably England's second choice right back at that stage. They spent the best part of $2 million on England's best two right backs. It's obviously a position they want to make sure they're covered in.
Well, apparently Souness had a kind of some sort of weird hang-up about players getting injured.
They're an incredible. It's an incredible celebrity side, isn't it? When you look at the players, I mean, it's got Andy Gray, Ray Wilkins, Trevor
Francis.
It's Terry Butcher. It's like all of these players. Worth saying, he needn't worry about Gary Stevens being injured. He played 52 games that year, so he was clearly fine. Mel Sterling plays 13 games. Wikipedia thinks he's a forward at this stage, so I don't know what's going on. But yeah, they signed these players, and this is a turning point in terms of the rivalry with Celtic, because Celtic have won the title, so that, we'd be thinking they're, top dollar and definitely competing there. Rangers beat them 5-1 in that I think it's the third game of the season. Ray Wilkins scores a belter from outside the box. Kevin Trinkle, who they signed from Norwich, he gets a whole bunch of goals as well. He scores a couple as well. It's a really commanding win. They beat them again 4-1 later in the season, and then they win at Parkhead and that's the first time since 1980. So there's a real turning of the tide at that point for this Rangers.
I think this is when it all comes together, isn't it, for this team? This is like, the sweet spot. This was the sweet spot for that team. And Rangers fans say that if you put Laudrup and Gascoigne in that team would win the European Cup.
Yeah, I think there's a fair point, actually. Yeah.
But it was almost like that team. It was it's the way that team come together. I know that he was trying to get Haitley from the time he got there. He wanted to get Haitley, but I think Haitley was. I think listening to Pub where someone say that he had a choice between Monaco or Govan.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. I mean, the weather's almost identical.
But yeah, he's good. He's managed to get this team together that is it's beautifully balanced, isn't it? Apart from, I think they just they want a big man up front to go with McCoy's. Yeah,
but you're absolutely right. This team is in the sweet spot, shoot, and I guess what's going to make it even more sweeter is there's going to be a takeover, which potentially will even reinforce financially the beast that Rangers is becoming. So David Hobbs has done this incredible job, loves the club. Another businessman, David Murray, who also has a very good relationship with Graeme Souness at that moment, is leading a consortium where I think Souness is even putting into his own pocket to help buy the football club, and they that goes through, and they buy the football club for £6 million in 1989, I think it is. Correct me if I got that wrong, Graham. Which just seems incredible. I mean, £6 million, that doesn't even buy you a third division right back these days, and there you are buying this massive beast, Rangers, and it could have been different because I think Robert Maxwell was in the market for a Scottish football team as well.
Rangers win the title in 88-89, and that is the first of 9 consecutive titles. So this is when the side, and you've got a series of players. There's still quite a lot of movement in terms of some of these kind of big names coming in, going, but you're starting to see some of these players who are there for, Ian Ferguson and Richard Gough. Players who are there for this period, who are absolutely central to it, and it's really coming together. They win that title, and then we get to, I guess it's sort of almost the big taboo, and it's Souness has kind of tackled almost everything since he's been there. But the big kind of issue, and he's asked it literally on his first press conference, isn't he? His first press conference, he arrives, he's like, "Will you sign a Catholic?" That is. It's sort of a major thing, and Rangers have obviously had this policy, official or non-official, I'm not quite sure, to not sign a Catholic, which seems all the more extraordinary because Celtic are happily signing Protestants.
Yeah, so apparently Jock Stein used to scout for. So Jock Stein is a Rangers fan, isn't he? Yeah? He's Protestant, yeah? And when he'd go scouting for Protestants because he knew that he didn't need to do the scouting for the Catholic because Rangers wouldn't take him. So he only had to go scouting for Protestant. So that's how he. Because Kenny Dalglish was a big Rangers fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's mad, isn't it?
It is
Genius.
quite. I think I had, in my lack of sort of knowledge of any of this, I think I had assumed it had been the same for both sides. But obviously, Rangers are kind of depriving themselves of the opportunity to sign X number of players. Now, Souness, he definitely makes attempts. He's quite clear, I think, that he'll sign whoever he thinks will add to the squad. So, as I mentioned, Frank McAvenny says that he had a go at signing him. There's suggestions that he was quite close to trying to get Ray Houghton and John Collins, who later goes on to play for Celtic. And it's definitely true at this stage, but that before he signs Mo Johnston, that they have been close to signing a couple. It's also worth saying that Rangers have John Spencer, who gets a debut in 1988. John Spencer goes on to play for Chelsea. But I
thought he was a snooker player.
He's also a snooker player as well. Good snooker reference. John Spencer and Tony Knowles, he was the second Catholic to play for Rangers. John Spencer chose Rangers over Celtic as a kid, and I think it was quite a challenging decision in those early days. He only plays something like 15, 20 games for Rangers, but, it illustrates, and I think over the years there have been Catholics who in one way or another have played for Rangers, but if you are going to break that taboo, then why not do it in the...
That's the plan.
Biggest a transfer that if you take, and actually, to be honest, I think you can take kind of the religion out of it, because the transfer without any of the religious backdrop to it is one which is definitely going to put the noses out of joint. So
both fans,
Rangers,
both set of fans are going to be angry.
So Mo Johnston, go on, Stu.
Have you seen the video of outside Ibrox when he's signing? And there's a bloke there, and he hasn't bothered taking his welding hat and goggles off. He's like, I'm straight from work, and he's still got his hard hat on and his goggles on. And he's like, I'm just, why don't you like him? He goes, I just don't like him. And he's going, is it because he's a Roman Catholic? And he's going, well, yeah.
It is a jaw-dropping signing, because Mo Johnston's been a star at Celtic. He's gone off to play in France. He's playing for Nantes, I think it is. And it also looks like he's going back to Celtic. When it becomes apparent that he's going to leave France, I think there was even a press conference that they talk about Johnston signing for Celtic. But that kind of breaks down, doesn't it?
Well, there's a press conference where he was actually with Billy McNeil. And I think he might be in the stands for the cup final that they play as well. It's like getting towards the back end of the season. But I was going to ask you two, what was he like as a...
Yeah, I think Mo Johnston definitely, he had something about him. He was fiery as a kind of ginger hair striker you'd expect. And you have to have something about him to take this move on.
Yeah.
To make that move, irrespective of the whole Catholic Protestant thing, it's a massive move. It's not going to make you popular at Celtic, a team that you are playing for the rivals. But it is a move that he obviously has the temperament to handle, because he does well. He does well at Rangers. He is able to sort of cope with that, and it is an extraordinary thing.
It's the social context of this transfer as well. It goes way beyond football. I mean, it really is getting in deep into some serious stuff that happens and goes on inside Scotland. It's way beyond football, but it is a ballsy move. And again, though, we have to bring this back to Graeme Souness just breaking every single glass ceiling that he could find. I mean, he's sticking his boots through every single one. He really doesn't care of how he goes about running Rangers Football Club at this particular moment. He is prepared to do everything and anything in his power to just put this team at the top of the table in Scotland, and quite possibly the top of the table in European football. When we talk about the legacy afterwards, and you've already mentioned, Laudrup and Paul Gascoigne go on to play for this Rangers side in the 1990s. That in its own, just having that as a sentence is incredible. You know, Brian Laudrup and Paul Gascoigne are playing for Glasgow Rangers. That's incredible.
Having signed him, it does again. Things don't immediately happen and take off. That season, Rangers do win the title. They win it by 7 points. They win it quite clearly. Yet they lose the first 2 games of the season. They only win 2 of their first 8, I think it is. They only win 20 of their 36 games. So it's not like total dominance. That was there to be taken. But they do win that title. What about Europe? Are they making any further inroads in Europe, or is that sort of
they're in the European Cup again?
They lose to Bayern Munich in the first round, I think, in this one.
So again, this is when the European Cup, they didn't have seeds. So Rangers have drawn Bayern Munich, which they lose. They lose the first leg quite comfortably, I think 3-1. And then I think they may draw the second leg, I can't remember. But yeah, so they're out of Europe almost as quick as they're in it.
I think this season is like as the top of the hill was the season before, where it all just came together, and like I say, the sweet spot for that team, that Souness team, and then from now on, this season, and obviously next season when he goes, they're on their way down. But the Mo Johnson one, I'll just quickly on that Mo Johnson signing is if you're a Rangers fan, it would be anyone but him. This is from my research. It's like anyone but him.
But that's just the ballsiness of the signing. David Murray, who's not been in the job long, and Graeme Souness, who doesn't give a crap about what's going on, they have the balls to upset both Rangers and Celtic fans by making this signing. But, by November, when Mo Johnson scores the only goal at Ibrox against Celtic in a 1-0 victory, suddenly the Rangers fans have taken him in. I don't think the Celtic fans are ever going to forgive him, but the Rangers fans certainly have embraced him as part of the family.
And then we get to, as you say, the following season where they bring Haitley in. He's obviously decided that the midfield isn't tenacious enough, or maybe Souness knows that he's because Graeme Souness, that's it. Graeme Souness, who has been player manager during this period, but he retires at the end of the 1990 season. So how do you replace Graeme Souness?
I'm so glad you did this.
Terry Hurlock.
It is brilliant. It's almost like he didn't want just somebody who played like him. He wanted somebody who looks like him as well.
In this season, we do have Haitley, McCoist, and Mo Johnston. It is a pretty tasty forward lineup. Haitley gets 15, Johnston 19, McCoist 18 goals between them.
Yeah.
But this is the end of the Souness story. So they do win the title. He leaves with a couple of games to go.
They're going head-to-head with Aberdeen. It's a real nip and tuck Premier League contest between Aberdeen and Rangers, and incredibly, the manager is off in mid-April with just a few games to go. It's incredible.
Yeah, so how it all goes down is he has a Barney with the tea lady at St Johnstone.
Yeah.
And you kind of just it's the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just like, I've had enough of it, and he kind of outgrown Scottish football at that point. He was he's arguing with a tea lady. I think she was complaining about the amount of mud that they'd left in the changing room, and he's saying, what do you expect to play football?
It's Aggie Moffat, or Agnes Moffat, is the St Johnstone tea lady, and you're absolutely right.
It sounds to me like it was more than a storm in a teacup if he's leaving his job.
Well, it was, yeah. Well, it was called the storm in a teacup. That was what the row was called. A suggestion that Souness allegedly threw a jug belonging to Moffat, prompting a direct exchange between the two in front of the two chief executives. And this is the other detail I like, that Moffat was approached to play a part in the Shot at Glory film with Annie McCoist, the Robert Duvall film, and she refused to appear in it, but suggested that Elizabeth Hurley could play her instead.
Good casting.
If there's one job that Souness would take or could tempt him away, the Liverpool job does kind of make some sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course.
It's an enormous football club, and it means a lot to Graeme Souness. So it's totally understandable. And the vacancy's been made available. Dalglish, who's had a brilliant time at Liverpool, has gone in the February, leaving a vacancy. So maybe Souness thought, I've had enough of the tea ladies, as we've discussed, and maybe the opportunity was there and then, and he took it.
So as you say, Souness leaves. What's his? What's the end stats on that? On his time there, Jamie?
Yeah. So what I did coming into this, and Stu, I sent you these as well, just to help us through, because at the top of this, you mentioned we've done Aberdeen and we've done Dundee United of this era. So I thought it's probably pretty important to stack up this Rangers team with those two teams who are also doing very well in Scottish football at that time. So Souness' win ratio in the league is 64.2%, which is better than Ferguson, 59.3%, and McLean, 57.3% at Aberdeen and Dundee United, respectively. His win rate is better than Ferguson's. So Graeme Souness in his Rangers team stack, I think, statistically, and definitely in terms of trophies as well, better than Ferguson's Aberdeen, which is quite a statement to make. Now, the one big difference in that, though, is that Ferguson does go on and win a European trophy with Aberdeen.
Also, you've got to look at Souness spent quite a bit of money. I don't think Ferguson spent... Did Ferguson spend any money? That team he created?
Definitely not originally.
You kind of they do compare, don't they, in the stats. But then when you get to Fergie's gone Man U and Souness has gone to Liverpool, that's when it all. And you know what? It all boils down to it's the signings that you make, it's the players that you buy.
Yeah,
that's kind of what makes or breaks a manager. Fergie's getting Roy Keane and Souness got rid of Staunton. Like what? How did Souness look and think Burrows is the one out of Staunton Borough?
What's definitely true is Walter Smith runs with it. Not only does he help get Rangers over the line for the third successive title, Rangers go on and win 6 more.
No, I think it's a really good point, Stu, that, Rangers are backed financially and Souness is backed financially because of the size of Rangers. And he has turned them into a super club, but they do spend an awful lot of money. And absolutely right, they go on and they carry on spending crazy sums of money as well. But they've done that because they've transformed themselves and they've taken full advantage of the English ban in Europe. They may not have done anything in Europe of note, but they've certainly taken advantage and they've changed the shape of Scottish football. Scottish football back then, in the 1990s, the early 1990s, was a big deal. It was a real big deal. And I would guess that a lot of people would crave that type of football in Scotland that they had back in the 1990s with the types of players that were coming into that league then.
Well, seeing as you mention it, let's get to it. We should rank this Rangers side. As a reminder, we've got 5 categories of greatness, all-time greats at the top, true greats, second tier, touch greatness, our third one, edge greatness, and then blink of greats at the bottom. Jamie, where are you going?
Yeah, tricky one, but this is what Souness has done is fantastic. So he's just raised the whole temperature of Ibrox. He's got more people in over his tenure in charge. They're winning trophies after trophies, and he's established Rangers at the very top table. Under normal circumstances, I would probably pitch this in the top 2 and very close to being an all-time great. But it's the backing of the money, and it's also the failure to do anything really serious in Europe that I think is a point off for me. So I'm gonna kick us off in the second category, which is true greats.
What do you think?
So is there 5 categories?
Yeah.
I'd go in the middle because they are a great team and they've got some great players. But I just think if you had Fergie's Aberdeen team in the second bracket, then I'd say Rangers just below.
I think to help you with that, I think we ranked Alec Ferguson's Aberdeen, Graham, correct me if I'm wrong, all-time greats. So I think we put Aberdeen in number 1. Dundee United, they were originally in touch of greatness, and in our promotion relegation episode, they got moved to true greats. So Dundee are in 2, Aberdeen is in 1. So maybe I should have led with that as well, just to kind of help flavour where I'm putting Rangers in the second bracket.
Yeah, I'm gonna right. Okay, I wanted them just below Aberdeen, so yeah, I'm gonna put them in the second one as well.
It is true. I'm like you. I think they strike me as kind of 3.5 out of 5. You know, they're somewhere in between the middle category and true grades. You're right, Jamie. They're a funny one because, you know, the legacy is huge. You go and see what Walter Smith goes on to achieve, and it's that Souness side in that era that breaks everything, that makes it possible. Souness's team they win league titles, but with the spend they make, you know, arguably that isn't. You could expect a little bit more from it, but I think what they do sort of off the pitch, not just in breaking barriers, but in the buzz, in the excitement that this Souness era has. They go from, you know, one of Rangers' worst periods, and Rangers go on to have a worse period. There's no question about that. You know, that wasn't, you know, there's a time when finishing third, fourth, or whatever isn't bad. But at the point he takes over, Rangers haven't finished in the top 3 for 4 years. This is Rangers. It's quite incredible. So he definitely, Souness brings them back. And yes, there's an awful lot of money that comes through, but Souness fronts up, takes absolutely everything on. So I think we can say Graeme Souness's Rangers, true greats. It was a good fun story, that one. There's a lot of ground to cover.
Oh my God. So much detail in that, isn't there? There's like so much in the story.
And this only sort of scrapes the surface of Rangers. I think that, you know, we've sort of dealt with the big ticket moments, which is great because they are so big ticket. And this Rangers story kind of goes well beyond the Scottish League. It hits on so many levels. There's so much this story, and like I said, I think we'll probably go on and talk about the second, the Walter Smith's part and what they go on to do. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, Stu. Thank you so much. I think you've done really well, mate. So I really appreciate you stepping out of your comfort zone, not being in the Aston Villa circle, but doing a great job and bringing beautiful colour to this incredible story.
Yeah, I tried my best. Yeah, I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah, good stuff.
Excellent. We'll look forward to having you back, Stu. After this, where do we go next? Well, we are going to go back in time, back to the start of English football. We're going to be looking at Huddersfield Town and Herbert Chapman.
Well, they're going to be at the top straight away, aren't they? you know what I mean?
What will we do with it? Yeah, so we'll be back next week. Herbert Chapman, Huddersfield Town.